Good evening, everyone. If you're joining in, my name is Richard Okiase, and I happen to be the team lead here at Fastire. So, the little conversation you heard us having was between myself and Mr. Felix Progress. He was talking a little bit about the asset management firms and how they intertwine with other financial services, right? And from wherever you're listening to, we're about to start the real session we have for today. So I want to first start by thanking you. Please, if you are online, please just tell us where you are you are connected from, right? Just maybe your location where you are located. And with that, we would just invite Mr. Felix Progress so that he takes over from here. But just before he takes over, please let's try and give him our rapt attention. There will be a session for Q&A, even beyond what he's going to cover. If you have questions regarding asset management, you would have that opportunity to hear from him. He works at Assam Assad. Assam Assad is an asset management organization, and they work with a lot of high net worth individuals and different category of earners in the country. So in this conversation, he is sitting on a level of knowledge or information that would benefit everybody that is on the call today. So without much ado, thank you so much, Mr. Felix, once again, and please take it over from here. Please, let's just give him a round of applause with the reaction buttons. Thank you. So, Mr. Felix, you can take it over from here.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Richard. Such great honor to be here with everyone. Yes, so my name is Progress. I work from the portfolio management table at Access Investment. So we'll just be having a conversation around. We'll just have a conversation around apportioning income. I believe that this topic is one that it's almost on the lips of everyone. The current economic climate has given a lot to think about in terms of how much you get to spend, how much you get to keep, how much is left for us to also manage for ourselves, our friends, our family, those close to us. And considering how the economy has been in the past couple of months, maybe spin it over a year, it leaves a lot to be desired for in terms of living comfortably in the country. So I'll just be sharing my thoughts around ways on which we can apportion our income effectively, considering the current economic climate that we are at the moment. Yes, so just as a brief introduction, we'll just begin by what our income is basically. I would, as much as possible, be very granular regarding this subject matter and just have it more relatable, break it down to the best of my abilities. Yeah, what income basically in the simple ways, an income would refer to an amount of money that is earned, that is received from various activities. So when you earn money from wages, which might be weekly, a monthly salary, when you earn money from a rent, that's your rental income, when you get money from the business that you make profit from the business that you do, all of those things are classified as income. But more importantly is the subject of income allocation. And income allocation would simply mean how you get to use that money that you have earned. How do you get to use the money you have earned? So for instance, you earn a monthly salary. Income allocation would speak to how you get to spend that money that you've earned, how you get to allot that money, or how you get to utilize that money into different aspects of your life. And just from the word income allocation, it will suggest that there is an objective that needs to be met. There's an objective that whether it is formally written or there's a mental account to it suggests that there is an objective that needs to be met when we indulge in income allocation. So, for instance, I think the biggest purpose for income allocation is just your capacity to be able to, first off, be able to know what that objective is. So, for instance, you know that you are earning, let's say, 10K a month or 10K a week, and of that 10K, you say to yourself, "Oh, I'm going to spend 2K on food. I'm going to spend another 2K on data. I'm going to spend another 2K on transportation." What you are doing, perhaps maybe consciously or unconsciously, is that you are making an attempt towards allocating your income towards different obligations that you have. And so in a bid to do this more effectively, before now, there was the tendency to just go with the flow. Once you earn the money, just spend it when the need arises, and then another money will come, and it keeps going. But then, considering the economic climate that we find ourselves currently, there's the need to have some effective measures or effective way for you to allocate that income. So if you earn 10 or 10K in a week, there needs to be an effective way that says, I need to allocate my income in this way so that I don't run out of money. And like I mentioned, the very first thing you need to do is you need to be able to define what your objectives are. By objectives, I mean, what do you want to do with that money, or what's your goal towards the utilization of that money? And once you are done with defining what that objective is, then you need to be able to now define what your risk tolerance is. By risk tolerance, I mean that how much of that money are you comfortable losing to get more money? Yes, so we'll discuss that in subsequent slide. But just to also state that what is also key in effective income allocation is for you to be able to dimension your needs. And by dimensioning your needs, what I mean is that you need to ask yourself, oh, okay, what are my obligations within a month? What do I typically spend money on? Which part of my life gets the most allocation in terms of money? So for instance, the quickest litmus to know what part of your life gets more money, just, I think most banks do it now. Just ask for your bank statement, maybe your 1 month bank statement or your 6 month bank statement, whatever time period you're comfortable with. And then try to analyze what the outflows, what you spent money on, the transfers you've made, what have you spent those money on. You might be surprised at the discovery you stumble upon, and you get to see that perhaps you've earned a lot of money, but somehow due to some poor level of income allocation, you've also allotted your monies to areas where might not be as profitable, or we are not as profitable enough for you. So I just needed to lay that as a bedrock to this conversation I'll be having. I think we've been able to shed some light on what an income is and perhaps what also income allocation is. So I'll just take us through. I think I've been mentioning a few things about the Nigerian economy in the past 6 months, perhaps in the past 1 year. So just to take a quick snapshot on certain macroeconomic indices. Yeah, so don't mind the big grammar, just I'll try as much as possible to explain this. So we all know that crude oil is Nigeria's major source of export, which means that that's how Nigeria gets foreign currency. And then because that's Nigeria's major source of exports, and that's also Nigeria's major source of foreign currency in terms of how much the country is able to generate in foreign currency. An important indices to watch out for is the crude oil production number. What that means is that how much crude is the country producing, first off, relative to the levels it can produce and relative to its production quota. So there's a quota that Nigeria is supposed to produce, and then there's a quota that Nigeria is producing. The wider that gap is between what Nigeria is producing and what Nigeria is supposed to produce, then you know that Nigeria is not making as much money as it is supposed to be making. So for the second quarter of 2024, Nigeria crude oil production stood at around 1.4 million barrels per day. What that means is that every day, Nigeria, according to the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, produce about 1.41 million barrels of oil per day. And if you compare this number to December, that's last year, 2023, you see a slight improvement, because in December 2023, you see oil production number at 1.34 million barrels per day. The reason for this slight increase is largely attributed to some attempts by the federal government to what's it called again? In its fight against crude oil theft, as it were, based off of the report that was released. So another key indices is if Nigeria is producing a particular number of barrels per day, then what is the cost of those barrels that Nigeria produce, or what is the cost of oil that Nigeria is producing? So that brings us to the second indices, which is the crude oil prices. So what is the price of the crude oil per barrel that Nigeria produces? Remember, Nigeria produces Nigeria produced in Q2 2024, produced 1.4 million barrels per day. So what was the crude oil price as at that time? So which suggests that if Nigeria's crude oil production increases, as well as oil prices also increase, it means that Nigeria would have more foreign currency at its disposal. In Q2, we saw crude oil at around $75 per barrel, as it were. And if you compare that figure to December 2023, you notice that it's a slight decline. And the reason for this slight decline is because oil is a global commodity, which means that there are many other players globally that affect the prices of oil. I think we call them OPEC, that's the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, and the OPEC Plus, for which United States form a part of. So what we've noticed between Q1 and Q2 is that certain factors have driven the prices of oil lower. And one of those factors have been the increase in the US stockpile. So the US have continued to also grow their own oil reserves as well. So as that oil reserves continue to increase, it also reduces the price of oil, demand and supply. Once the supply of particular products increases and there's not sufficient enough demand for it, you notice that the prices will crash. And to a very important indices that we all possibly even track, inflation and currency. So inflation is just the increase in the prices of commodities for a particular period of time. So Nigeria's inflation as at September stood at 32.70%. And if you notice that figure, you notice that it's also lower than that of December, which was at 28.91%, which means that if you were getting a cup of gari for, let's say, 100 naira in December, because inflation has gone higher from December to September, that cup of gari will cost more because the prices of commodities have inched higher. And also, one thing to also note about inflation is that a direct impact of inflation is that it erodes your purchasing power. And what that means is that if, because of inflation, 1 naira today would always be greater than 1 naira 10 years from today, will always be greater than 1 naira in 6 months' time. That means whatever commodity you can buy with 1 naira today, because of inflation, you would not be able to get that same commodity in 10 years' time, in 6 years' time, for that same 1 naira, because inflation has the capacity to continue to erode your income. Currency also, we've seen a lot of devaluation of the Nigerian currency. I think this is a major topic in almost every corner of the nation. This stands at 1,681 naira to the dollar, and this is not the parallel market price. This is the official rate from FMDQ. So you notice that this is also higher than in December, which means that because Nigeria is a heavily is an import dependent country, you notice that we create a lot of demand for the dollar. And what that means is that when the price of dollar goes higher, or when the dollar becomes stronger and the naira weakens, you notice that it also reduces the purchasing power of the people that hold naira, and also get to make the cost of those imported products become way expensive. I think I've jotted a lot on this already, but just to give you a general scope, the numbers do not look so impressive compared to other African countries, and perhaps the likes of maybe South Africa and perhaps other emerging markets. But one can say that you get to experience the night before the day, right? And this may be and that's maybe very optimistic, but the numbers do not show a lot of positivity in the past months, speaking date. So that brings us to the crux of the matter. What do we then do, seeing that a lot has changed, a lot has impacted the Nigerian people? How do they then begin to strive against the odd? How do they get to manage their finances in spite of all of these issues that are plaguing the economy, in spite of the reduction or rather the devaluation of the currency, in spite of oil prices declining and Nigeria not being able to provide enough supply in the FCY market, the foreign exchange market? What then does the average Nigerian, or what are the options for the average Nigerian in terms of managing their finances, apportioning their income? How do they grow from where they are to where they have envisaged themselves to be? How do they move against the odd? And basically, how do they get to weather the storm? So in just a couple of slides, we just delve into that. So just also give you a snapshot of what I was referring to. So you notice that this is just a trend of where the naira was against the dollar. So you notice that from September, the naira against the dollar was pretty at around the 800 levels in September, and you notice that the spread between the parallel market and the official rate was slightly wider. You can see that from how tall the green bar is compared to the blue bar. But then you also notice that from December coming into January, you see a lot of increase in those bars, which signify that a lot has also changed in terms of the fact that the naira has experienced a lot of depreciation coming into the year 2024. As at September, that number stood at 1,056 initial amount. You bought it in September last year. And a lot of the technicalities on this slide. Just to also speak to the GDP numbers. GDP just signify the gross domestic product, meaning that it just shows you how much the economy is doing in terms of how much it is, how much production is going on in the economy domestically. And what you notice is if you check the table to your right, you see that GDP slightly improved between Q2 and Q1. But then if you drill down the contributions of different sectors, you notice that most sectors have actually suffered. And that's also explaining some of the points I alluded to, that the economy had not been in the best position. So for instance, you look at manufacturing initially contributed about 1.49 to the economy, but then in Q2, it's dipped to about 1.28. The same thing for trade, the same thing for your telecommunications, same thing for even real estate. The only sector that have probably been pushing the economy has been the service sector, which would be the insurance and financial institution. But then again, the financial institution also took some hits in Q2. I think you remember when the CBN came up with instruction for banks to capitalize and asking you to buy their shares, different banks coming up with different marketing strategies for you to buy their shares. That period also, the banking sector also took a hit. But one thing to take from this slide is that there are a lot of indirect impacts to different sectors of the economy, and those impacts has not been somewhat, means that sectors strained. There have been a lot of difficult times for most sectors in the economy, and that has not really helped the Nigerian economy more holistically. Yeah, and just to also mention that in terms of contribution, we just see the non-oil sector still remain flat. What that means is that it contributed relatively the same thing as it did in Q1, as it also did in Q2. And what that to suggest is some level of lack of growth in that sector. And based off of the things I've mentioned earlier, you notice that not so much has been going on for a lot of sectors in terms of growth in the economy. And maybe that's also the reason why we're having this conversation, just so that we're able to properly position ourselves as individuals and even as individuals and as corporates to see how we can also weather the storm and push against the tide in the current economic climate. Yeah, and maybe to the crux of the matter, how then do you, just to mention some key points about apportioning your income. But before we delve into that, one thing to note is before you apportion your income, you need to be able to know how to grow your income. So like I mentioned, because of inflation, there's a concept in finance called the time value of money, which just simply suggests that $1 today is worth more than $1 in the future. And I'm sure that most of us have even received some trivias. If I give you $1 million today and I give you 10,000 naira every month for the next 20 years, which one are you going to choose? I think the answer is very common. It's just common sense anyway, because $1 today would always be worth more than $1 in the future. And knowing that, it simply means that for you to effectively apportion your income, you need to first be equipped with the right information to be able to grow or initiate strategies that would help with income growth. And first on that line would be the capacity to budget wisely and save strategically. Yes, and I know that certain philosophies would actually say things like it's easier to earn more than to cut down on expenses. And then another philosophy would then say you need to cut back on your spendings so that you can save more. But then if you ask me, I think it's not one or the other. It should be a blend of both. Because it's not so much about how much you earn, it's really how much you're able to keep. And then it's not just how much you are able to keep that would ultimately matter. It's how much you're able to grow what you keep. And growing what you keep will mean that you need to grow what you earn. So I honestly think it's a blend of both. But the very first strategy I'd like to recommend would be to be able to budget wisely and save strategically. So what that would just entail is, like I mentioned earlier, if you earn an income of say 10,000 naira monthly, you say to yourself, of this 10,000 naira, what are my obligations? That would just mean you trying to that will mean you trying to dimension your needs. So what are my obligations? What will my transportation look like in the month? What would my feeding look like in the month? What would possibly, let's say, a change of wares, or let's say you live alone, your house rent, what's it going to cost on a monthly basis, or probably your data money, or perhaps money to chill with your friends. All of these things are expenses that you typically would incur on a month-to-month basis. So once you're able to get that income and you say, these are all my obligations that I need to fulfill, and then you are able to dimension them between what is it that you need and what it is that you want. So dimensioning those obligations into what you need and what you want is going to be very instrumental to knowing how you will allocate that your income, because at some point, basic economics, your wants are insatiable. They will continue to grow, which suggests that you cannot begin to allot your very scarce resource to an insatiable one. So what you need to do is to define what your obligations are, break down those obligations into your needs and your wants. So for instance, you can say, okay, I need to eat. So probably feeding will be a major need. And then I need to maybe go to the office, your transportation cost, how do you provide for that? But then you can decide that, oh, okay, this month I don't want to flex with the friends, and you cut back on that. Maybe this month I'm not going to buy a new pair of shoes. Maybe I'll save up and buy it next month. So dimensioning those obligations into needs and wants would help you budget wisely. And saving strategically will mean that whatever is left, or whatever portion of your income you've decided to save, you are being strategic with it. What that means is that you are not just, you don't just hear a particular investment, oh, everybody's doing it now. You not take all the money you have been saving, now push it there, and then you get your fingers burnt and you are back to square zero, or rather square one, as they popularly say. So I think first on that would be your capacity to budget wisely. And I mentioned certain things about budgeting wisely and then saving strategically. And second on that line item for me would be avoiding investment scams. I know I was speaking to a friend and I had that conversation, and I said, the world where we are at the moment is not just a world where we have information overload. It's a world where we have opinion overload, such that the loudest person sounds like the most correct person. So once everybody's doing something, it feels like that's the next thing to delve into. Once there's a new platform, don't do anything, just click this, we earn the money, and everybody just wants to go there. And more importantly for you to note is that you need to be able to avoid investment scams for you to be able to grow your income, because the more you fall for investment scam, the more you erode your saving power, the more you erode your own income that you've earned. So you need to avoid investment scam. And there are a few red flags for you to just know that this investment might be shady. First off, if it's too good to be true, then it's too good to be true. It sounds like a good word pun, but it's very instructive. If it's too good to be true, then it's too good to be true. And second of all, for every investment scam, there's that out of urgency. If you don't do it now, you'll miss it forever. If it's not happening today, it cannot happen tomorrow. If you don't do it now, it's never going to come by you again. That level of urgency that always comes with those opportunities makes it a very red flag that this particular opportunity might just be an avenue that's going to erode my own savings. And also, more importantly, is do not invest in things you have zero knowledge about. I don't know how to emphasize this, but I think Warren Buffett actually does encourage this as well. Don't invest in things you have zero knowledge about. And if you must invest in things you don't have any knowledge about, then you should engage the services of a financial advisor. You should engage the service of somebody that really knows what they are doing. Not like you just heard that XYZ is paying and then you are in there trying to risk your little savings to earn an astronomical profit, and then you come out worse than you entered into the entire investment scheme. So I think, second of all, avoid investment scams. I think once you're able to do that, then you can keep the money that you've saved for a long time and then invest them in more credible investment vehicles. And I think the third one is you need to learn to upskill and innovate. I think it was Warren Buffett that mentioned that the greatest investment would be an investment into yourself, and that's because nobody can take that away from you. Nobody's going to sack you from that. Nobody's going to you won't reduce yourself by improving in yourself. You just get better by improving in yourself. And once you're able to upskill, by upskilling, I mean you need to be able to know what the new skill set is in terms of requirement for that, your needs. You need to be able to innovate. What's the next best thing that's going to drive and scale this business? What's the next approach towards the next level of this business? The capacity to continue to always self-question and put in the right amount of innovation and creativity to that enterprise, and also as individuals, not just to be okay with, oh, finally I've graduated, I made mama proud, the many things we write on our shirts on the last day of graduation. And we think that's perhaps the plateau of self-improvement. But we need to look beyond that and continue to upskill. If you are a front-end developer, what's the next level towards front-end development? What's the next driver that would shape what front-end looks like in the next 10, 20 years? How positioned are you in the direction where that industry is headed, and whatnot? Thing is that once you begin to think in this direction, you become more valuable, and in becoming more valuable, you're able to increase your earning capacity, and that also translates to growth in your income. Yes, so now that you are able to grow your income, the next thing now becomes how do you invest this money? Like I mentioned, inflation is a major concern globally. Nigeria is also having its own fair bite of that. And what that means is I just try to mention in passing what time value of money is, which then suggests that $1 today would be worth $1, would be worth more than $1 in the future. I think that's the easiest way to explain it. And what that means is that if all you are doing is just keeping your money somewhere, putting it under your bed, putting it inside your piggy vest, your colo, truth is that by the time you break that colo and you go to the market, whatever amount you have saved up and whatever you're able to buy with that amount, you will have been able to buy more with it as at the initial time you save for it. And what that means is that you need to be able to not just save your money, but you need to be able to invest that money such that inflation does not erode it, or you somewhat reduce the impact of inflation on your money. So rather than just save and save and save, for instance, somebody that has 10,000 in January 2024, and the person can possibly buy, okay, let's make the example more granular. Somebody that buys a bag of rice in January for let's say 40,000 or 50,000, but then it's this September or rather November, and the same bag of rice, nothing changed. It's not like the grain came from a special place. Perhaps even the same bag of rice is sold for twice the price of what it was bought at in January, which means that if you were just saving your money to buy that one bag of rice, by the time you are done saving your 40, 50K in November, you discover that you can no longer buy a bag of rice. So what that means is that you need to be able to do something with that your 40, 50K, such that at the end of November, you would not just have your 40, 50K, you would have enough money that would either be able to buy you the bag of rice or be able to earn you enough that will bring you closer to buying the bag of rice. So I have a couple of recommendations here. So like I mentioned earlier, the first thing is for you to be able to know what your objective is. By knowing what your objective is, the question is, what do you want to do? Why? What's your goal in the short term, in the long term, in the next 2 to 3 years? What are your financial goals in the next 10 to 15 years? What are your financial goals? And once you define those goals, not just mentally, but you're able to put them to paper, it provides a level of clarity, and it also helps you know the level of risk you are willing to take. So for instance, if you have monies that you want to use tomorrow, you know that there are certain risks you don't want to take with the money today, because you know that you need the money urgently by tomorrow. So for instance, you have a friend that always comes to ask you, hey guy, find me 1K, find me 2K. And perhaps all you have at the moment is 1K or 2K. Chances are that you will need to really trust that friend a lot for you to give that person the 1K, knowing that you also need it tomorrow. But if you don't need the 1K tomorrow and you need the 1K, let's say in 6 months' time or in 7 months' time, you can as well just give the person the 1K and be sure that maybe even if the person does not have it this month, by the second month, the person will be able to pay you your 1K, or maybe spread the 1K to like 200 every month, so that at the end of 6 months or 5 months, the person can pay you the 1K. So that is what setting an objective and also knowing what your short-term and long-term goals can do for you in terms of your investing. Like the example I gave, if you have a short-term goal to meet a particular objective, you know that you cannot take certain risks with that money. You cannot take certain risks with that money you've saved up or that money that you've earned. Meanwhile, if your objective is a bit more long-term, you know that there are some risks you can take with it. You can invest it in slightly riskier assets or investment vehicles, knowing that your objectives are long-term. So just to also mention, for me here, I think the first thing you need to do is, I think almost everybody that earns some level of income can do this. You need to build up funds in, first thing, you need to build up funds in low-risk investment vehicles. Examples are money market, low-risk deposits. So examples are the mutual funds. We know what mutual funds are. Mutual funds are funds where people pull funds together and then they earn a particular return on those funds on a daily basis. I think a couple of financial houses do that. You could search that online. Just you can Google the money market mutual funds, and different options will come. Will be pulled up for you. Don't want to recommend names here, but what you get to do is it's just like your typical savings account, but then rather than the bank not giving you any interest, and the typical bank account, once you make more than 3 withdrawals from your savings account, you lose the interest earned for that month. But for your mutual fund account, you earn the interest daily on a per annum basis. So if you have 2K today, let's say you earn a 10K salary, and then you say you're going to be saving your 1K every month. 1K is what you'll be saving. So rather than just have that 1K inside your piggy vest, then you just move on to just move on to other then just move it to the money market fund where you can earn some level of interest, and then help you grow, or rather prevent you from some level of inflation, as it were, on your funds and other. And this is just to bring it a bit more granular. I think for the money market fund, most houses do between an initial sum of 2K to 5K. That's the minimum entry. So I think almost everybody can start from there. And then you grow that consistently, and over time you build your savings. And also there are also typical other investment vehicles. For instance, your commercial papers. Commercial papers, just to break that down, commercial papers are just the investment vehicles or instruments that are issued by corporates. So for instance, the big guys that you know, let's say MTN or Dangote or Flour Mills, any of these companies that you know, once they need money, they'll come to people that have money to borrow money from them, and then they borrow that money at a particular interest rate. But interesting thing here is that we've seen some fintechs be able to provide some of these instruments to retail investors like me and you, with your 50K, with your 100K. You can also take advantage of these papers. The important thing to note in this particular stage or this particular step is that this is where you get to build your fund. This is where you get to build the monies you want to grow for that long-term or short-term goal that you have initially marked. And this is personal to me. That's the step 2. You need to explore avenues to actively rotate or switch these funds to hard currency. So you might not follow this route, but I think it is important that somehow you have an exposure to hard currency, and that's because we've seen what the Naira has done against other currencies in the past year. Thank you very much, sir. Yes, I'll just round up with that. Yes, we've seen what the Naira has done against other currencies in the past year, and just having some foreign currency exposure would help you, or rather aid you in terms of prevention from inflation, and help you also grow your income. And more importantly, I think the chart to the left just shows how you most likely invest some of these monies. So if you have a medium to long term goal that you want to meet, you can then invest in some equities, that's from the shares of some certain companies based off on some key data points of those companies. Like I said earlier, what's most key is that if you have zero knowledge about a particular investment, it's best that you engage the services of a financial advisor, or at the minimum be able to get to understand how it works, just so that you don't burn your fingers. And also some other investment vehicles that I also have here to the left, rated bonds. Like I mentioned, there are some fintechs that are able to provide some of these securities to retail customers for smaller amounts. And once you build your funds in the low risk investment vehicle, like your money market mutual funds, or through some commercial papers, once you're able to build that fund, then you can pivot into some of these securities, as it were. Yeah, so just to also run us through some major key takeaways. I think first would be that I think risk management is very key. And it's key because if you're not able to assess and define what the level of risk is that you're willing to take, the chances are that you will most likely burn your finger at every turn. You lose your money in the easiest possible way. So you need to be able to assess and implement or define what the level of risk is that you're willing to take. And also, once you do that, then you now begin to define and evaluate what your obligations are, what your transport cost to be, what your housing cost is, what your data is, what your feeding is. Some of these basic needs, what do they accumulate into in terms of your obligations? And of that, you will now know that, okay, I've done feeding, I've done data, I've done transport, I've done monies to family, I've done black tax. This money that is left, I cannot afford to lose it, or I cannot take certain level of risks with it. So that way you're able to properly define what your risk tolerance is. And also, once you're able to do that, what that helps you do is it helps you position your funds properly into areas that will benefit and help those funds grow. So what that means is that once you've decided that, okay, I've been able to define what my risk tolerance is, the level of risk I'm willing to take, and also you've been able to define that these are my obligations that I have to fulfill on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, or whatever time period. Whatever money is left, you can now say, this is my financial goal, and then I hope to be able to achieve this. And then you're able to allot that money towards the fulfillment of that financial goal. But if all of these are missing, there's the tendency to always fall into the trap of not having enough money, or always running into a lot of debt because you've not been able to dimension your needs effectively, and you just go with the wind. You put your money, you spend your money on needs, spend it on wants, even things that are not necessary. You feel they are necessary in the moment, so you just spend it because you think you have it, and then before you know it, you begin to run short of money. I think one other key takeaway is that going into the rest of the year, we expect that the dollar should, the naira against the dollar should go a bit higher. The naira should further weaken against the dollar. Expectations are that we'll see some increased demand for the US dollar as we go into the festive season. What that means is that if you have enough money that you think that, okay, I have a long-term goal that requires an exposure to foreign currency, probably now might be a good recommended time to also buy as well. And looking at inflation as well, you notice that I think is the talk of town. At the moment, you've seen increased electricity tariff. Different disco have announced hiking their prices, same as transportation. What used to cost 50 naira is now 150. What used to be like 500 is now 1,000 naira. Increase also in petrol prices. I think across the nation, we know how that has been eating through almost every household. And my view is that the increase in some of these basic amenities would most likely continue to weigh in on end users, weigh in on the eventual consumers, because with increase in the electricity tariff, those that own businesses will need to pass that cost to the end users. As increase in transportation occurs, people that are transporting food produce from the rural area to the urban area, they need to increase their price. So inflation will still be a major concern. And more importantly, I think one of the key takeaway for you to have here is that whether as individuals or as corporates, you need to be able to prioritize cost saving and income generating activities for yourself and your business. Because like I mentioned, your wants are insatiable. There are many things you want to do. There are many things that you want to spend money on, but then your resources are limited. Basic economics is that resources are limited, wants are insatiable. So what you need to do is, or the activities you need to keen yourself towards are activities that prioritize cost saving, prioritize your needs, and then not just focus on just cost saving. You must also focus on income generating activity. And I think I spoke to that in the previous slide. And I think just down to question and answers, and that brings me to the end of these slides.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Mr. Felix. Please, let's just say thank you to Mr. Felix in the comment sections, please. Let's just say thank you to Mr. Felix in the comment section. But before we go forward, I want to talk a little bit about the organization organizing this. So for people who are maybe attending our events for the very first time, this is Fast Tire Services, and we happen to work at the intercept between students and professionals. What that means is that our services cuts across services that help students who want to study abroad and professionals who are looking to get ahead in their career. So we offer for the professionals, we offer CV writing services, LinkedIn optimization. We help you prepare for your interviews. We help you even look for jobs, right, on certain or in certain places. And we also work with employers who are looking to list their jobs, which we list on our website, www.thefasthire.org. While for students, we help them prepare some of their application documents like personal statements, academic CV, and all that. So on your screen is just one of our flyers, and like I said, you can take a screenshot in case you need our services anytime, and then our website is also there. So that said, we would be going into the Q&A session now. So do we have questions? If you have any question, please just use the reaction button for raising your hand, and then I can take the questions one after the other. So very quickly again, before we go into the Q&A session, Mr. Felix, for people who did not meet his introduction, is actually an asset manager. In some parlance, he could be called a portfolio manager, or he's called a portfolio manager. So what that means is that he works with different clients at different income level, high income, and what have you, manage their assets, grow their assets, right? So all the stakeholders that he works with at his organization as a Masad, which is also an asset management company, he works with them all year round and all need be to help them manage their assets and grow their assets and do not get caught in the web of eroding assets, which are caused majorly by what he said, inflation and the rest. So if you have your income growth related question, finance related question as in regards to assets and portfolios and the rest, right? This is a good time for you to bring forward that question. So before others start asking their question, I just have a quick question for you, Mr. Felix. So I will stop sharing my screen so you can take over from here. So I wanted to ask about financial needs analysis. I think I was reading something. You can get back to the screen, sir. So I wanted to ask about financial needs analysis. How can we do that? What was the concept about? I know I read a bit about it. I do not have a finance background, but I don't know if you're going to touch a bit about it. Then in your slide 8, you had some stuff allotted to the different icon. Will I call them icons? There was something I saw about um, positive and negative, positive equity, negative equity, neutral equity. I don't know if I'm getting it correct, but I don't know if you can just share that your slide 8 and you see what I'm talking about. So I wanted you to lay emphasis on what that means or what the terms mean. Yeah. So those are my two questions. Financial needs analysis. Can you talk a bit more about it and throw more light? And you have positive quality short. Okay, positive quality short duration assets. What do they mean? Neutral equities. What do they mean? So I just need to understand those terms. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Richard. So just to respond to the first question, financial needs analysis. I think, okay, not that I think, the course of the conversation, we have been able to discuss on needs from a top level perspective. So this is what financial needs analysis is. It has, it is basically you trying to um, assess what your needs are financially. I think there's a general balance in finance. It says when in confusion, say it slowly. Yeah, so financial needs analysis is how you're able to um, assess your needs financially and then able to cater and then you're able to cater for them. So it's going to involve first, you need to be able to decipher what your objectives are. You also need to be able to um, gather data that speaks to what your needs are. And I think I mentioned that in passing when I said you could just download your financial statement for the past 1 month or past 6 months and see what really constitutes your outflows, what contributes to the money that you earn, how the monies you've earned, how they came to you, and the monies that left you, what did you spend them on? So you get to gather those data from your financial statement, and then you need to be able to provide some level of risk assessment. By risk assessment, you're just trying to define what your level of risk is. So based off on the amount of money you earn, based off on what your financial goals are, whether they are the near-term goals or long-term goals, based off on those goals and the amount of money you earn and the amount of and the level of needs that you have, then you're not able to say whether I'm a high risk investor or whether I'm a low risk investor, or whether I'm a mid to high risk investor, basically. So you're able to define what your risk tolerance is, what your risk appetite is, and then finally you're able to execute on the strategy that you have come up with based off on what your objectives are, the data you've gathered from your um, needs assessment, which typically in this example would be, let's say your bank statements for a defined period of time, and then what your risk tolerance is, and then you come up with a plan to achieve that financial goal, whether it's short term or long term. And then after execution, there's a last stage that would now involve you assessing the level of impact that plan that you've drafted out, how it had been towards your financial goals and the impact those plans have made towards bringing you closer to those goals. And then if it did not bring you as close as you want or as close as you wanted, then you review those plans and then re-strategize and become better. So basically, it is this chain of events or chain of activities are what will accumulate into what the financial guys will call your financial needs assessment or financial needs analysis, where you're able to dimension all of these things that I've previously mentioned into different buckets and execute, and then you get to reevaluate how or reevaluate their impact on your financial goals, whether short-term or long-term. And also, speaking to this slide, what this means is that when I say I'm neutral on equities, it means that I'm not taking all my money into equities. And what that means is that, for instance, for someone that earns 10K, I've used that 10K example a lot. Someone that has 10K, and out of that 10K, the person can only save 1K. Neutral on equities, we suggest that I'm not using all my 1K on the equities. It just simply means that I'm going neutral on equities. Maybe I have a small fraction of my 1K invested in equities. And remember, like I mentioned, the choice on what to allocate your money on or your money to is dependent on what your objective is dependent on what your risk appetite is, and is dependent on what your financial goals are. So for somebody that does not have a very high risk appetite, the person does not want to lose his money. If the least 1K from the person money drops, like this is like the whole world is ending. For that kind of person, the person would not want to invest in equities because equities are slightly riskier instruments. Although the general rule of thumb is that the higher the risk, the higher the return. So with a higher risk, you get to earn a higher return. But then, like I mentioned, you need to dimension what your needs are. You need to also pen down what your objectives are in terms of what your financial goal is. And then you also need to know what your risk appetite is. So based off on these three things, you come up with a plan. And that plan would now involve these recommendations that I have here. So neutral on equity means that I'm putting just a small portion of my money in equities. Positive on short duration assets, USD and NGN, simply means that because I'm an investor that does not want to lose my money, I'll most likely put my money in Nigerian short duration assets. What that means is that the maturity of those assets are less than 1 year or probably a year or two. What that means is that I'm not going to put my money in something that's going to mature in the next 20 years or 30 years. I don't know what is going to happen by then. So because I need my money in the short term and because I don't want to lose my money, I get to put my money in this short duration asset. And because this short duration asset provides capital preservation, it means that I will not necessarily lose my capital as compared to when I invest on equities, then I'm positive on this. But negative on local currency, what that means is that as much as possible, I don't want to hold too much Naira. And what that means is if I've saved a lot and I've, like I mentioned, built up enough fund in my money market account, and then I need to now invest. In my investing goals, I don't want to hold too much Naira than I need. So based off of my own needs assessment that I've done from the entire activities of the financial needs analysis, I discovered that what I need per time to meet my Naira obligation is like, say, 20K per month. Why should I have 2 million sitting down in Naira? Knowing fully well that first off, the Naira is going to face a lot of depreciation compared to other foreign currency, and knowing also that inflation is also going to be on the rise. So what I need to do is I just need to have considerable level of Naira exposure that can meet my needs based off of what I've dimensioned, and then have those other part of the Naira into other assets or other currencies that would be able to give me better returns. So that's why I'm negative on local currency. Also, neutral or long-dated sovereign bonds simply also means that the same thing with the equities. I only have a small portion of my investable income into this asset class, and that's because my goal is more towards short-dated instruments, and then if I must go towards long-dated instruments, then I must not put all of my monies in those instruments. I must put just a small fraction of it. I hope I'm able to answer the questions, Mr. Richard.
Yes, please, clearly. So thank you. All right. So who else has question? Our time is fast spent. Okay. There is Beauty. Please, if you have question, please just indicate with the reaction button. You will see the option to raise your hand. Do that so that we can take all the questions at once and we would be done. We don't have much time left. If you have question, please do that now so that we can take all the questions. So Beauty, please. Okay, we have a second person. Who else has question? Please, let's have our hands up so that I will know how many, and then we'll know how we can take our time to attend to the questions and be done on time. So I'm assuming we just have only 2 people with questions so far. Because after these 2 people, I might not take any other questions so that we can go and attend to other things. Who else has a question? Is there something you're not clear about? Okay, so I might continue. Take your question, Deborah.
All right. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mr. Fadesa. Good evening, Mr. Richard. Okay. So my question is, earlier on you talked about mutual funds. I just want you to explain more about mutual funds. Then, if possible, suggest the best or the high interest rate banks for the mutual funds that someone can open, and which banks have their high interest rate for the mutual funds? I think that's my question.
Okay, yeah, I'll be quick with that. So,
Okay, sorry,
mentioned,
Mr.
okay,
Felix. Sorry. So I know you were trying to be careful not to make recommendations. So, but I think we can take your recommendation on a disclaimer. So feel free to give your disclaimer and then do the recommendation, and it will always be noticed that you gave your disclaimer before the recommendation.
very correct. I was about to just do that.
Okay.
Yes, but just to explain what mutual funds are. So, there are certain securities that their entry levels are quite huge. And what that means is that the minimum amount to invest in those securities are high. For instance, your treasury bills. Treasury bills are debt securities issued by the government of a country. And in Nigeria, the minimum entry amount for treasury bills is like 50 million. And 50 million is not readily accessible to the average retail investor. And so what mutual funds do is that you that are the retail investor, you invest in the mutual funds. Mutual fund means that you guys are pulling your funds together. You are putting funds together. And Mr. A brings his 2K, Mr. B brings his 5K, Uncle A brings his own 10K, Auntie B brings her own 20K. All of you pull your resources together. And meanwhile, this fund is managed by an investment professional. And through your different inputs into the fund is able to generate, in this case, the minimum entry amount for treasury bill. And then the fund buys that treasury bill. And in buying the treasury bill, whatever return the treasury bill is offering at that moment, the fund manager or the company distributes those earnings from the treasury bills to the individual unit holders in that fund, or in simpler terms, to the different people that invested in that mutual fund. And of course, the companies take what is called maybe a management fee or whatever fee they call it. More specifically, what mutual funds should you be investing in? Mind you, this is not, I'm not endorsing any house, and I'm not, this is not an advertisement for any of them as well. But a couple of names are market leaders. So I'll just give you the top 5 money market funds in the country. And by top 5, I mean the people with the largest asset under management, the people with the largest monies that are being managed. So the first to be Stanbic, and this is in no particular order anyway. Stanbic IBTC Money Market Fund, AXA Mansard Money Market Fund, ARL Money Market Fund. Then you have United Capital Money Market Fund. And then you also have, I think the 5th should be First Bank Money Market Fund. So these are the 5 biggest money market funds by the amount of monies being managed by these different houses. So these are the top 5 guys of money markets. You could have your research and know which one works best for you, and you can invest in them. Averagely, most money market funds are around 20% at the moment, 20%, 21%, depending on how good the fund managers are. But averagely, money market funds are within the 20% levels at the moment. So I hope I've been able to answer your question.
Yes, you have. Thank you. So sorry, and let me just go again. So that means if I want to open like 2 or 3 money market accounts, I can go ahead without any restriction, right?
Yes, you can with different houses, but I think each individual house perhaps might have their own internal process as to whether a single individual can have multiple accounts But if you want to open it in different houses, then why not? Sure, you can. Like have a money market fund account with AXA, have one with Stanbic, have one with UCAP. You can definitely do that. But whether or not you can open multiple money market accounts with just say Stanbic, then I think maybe it really depends on the investment house, whether or not they allow that and what their regulator says in that regard concerning that action. Is that clear?
Deborah, you're
Yes,
clear?
yes, that's
All right.
totally clear. Thank you.
I hope you are getting value. Are we learning something? If you're learning something, please leave a comment. Let me know in the comment section that you're learning something. We're learning about money market. We're learning about mutual funds. If you're finding the conversation interesting, please leave a comment. Let's be Beauty. Are you set? Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Anthony. It's a great content. Who else is learning something? We are. Abraham. Who else is learning something? Let's be sure we're carrying everybody along. We have about who else is learning? Who else is learning something? Let me see your comments. If you're learning, great. Izzy said, all right. Thank you so much. Who else? Who else? Very informative. Thank you so much. Okay, Beauty, are you set for your question? Let's have your question. Your question is the last question where.
Yes, I'm set for my question. Thank you,
All
Mr.
right.
Richard, this section,
Please
and
go
thank you, Mr. Felix, for the educative content, series you've shared to us, the knowledge. Then again, you were using an example of 10,000 naira and relating to how to apportion income. How to, apportion income and talking about the investment it can actually bring. Now, I want to educate my knowledge gap. Now, in the reality, for somebody who is earning 50,000 naira in a month, because you also mentioned like one has to know where his or her money is going to by getting a bank statement, and the person can be able to ideally know which area takes in or takes out the person's money. But in this part, when somebody who had already known which angle is actually taking the money, now the person is earning 50,000 naira in a month, and in 12 months, that's 600,000 naira. Ideally looking at the fact that your 3-month salary should be able to pay your rent. So the person sorted to choose for a house that he or she could actually pay 150,000 naira per annum. So ideally, because we have to apportion the money, right? So from the 50,000 naira, the person is actually saving 12,500 naira every month for the rent. And because of the current economic hardship, so the person now has to feed for 25,000 naira and pay transportation to work for 10,000 naira. So totally 47,500 with a balance of 2,500. Now I want to know how can this particular individual apportion his or her income and also seek for an investment, because although the person needs to maximize the income, right? Because you also mentioned maximizing one's income using skills, and where you're giving reference to the 10K. So I have to give the reference to somebody who is having this thing as a reality. How can this person actually apportion his or her income and also seek for investment? I mean, what ways can this person actually break free from these whole shangles? So that's my question, Mr. Felix.
Yeah, very, very pragmatic. I like the fact that you have made an attempt to possibly bring it home. During the conversation, I'd mentioned that it's not the idea of apportioning your income is not a single extreme. So what do I mean? People make conversations like you need to cut down your spendings, you need to reduce, increase your cost saving, you need to cut down on this, cut down on that. I'd mentioned that it needs to be a blend of both. What that means is, as much as you try to cut down on some spendings, or rather increase your cost saving, you need to also be able to grow your income. The both needs to go pari passu. You can't decide to continue to cut your savings and not grow the income and expect to improve the standard of life. Because ultimately, the goal would be that, or the reason why you want to effectively apportion your income would be that you want to improve your standard of life. You have a financial goal you aspire to hit. So the point is, the emphasis should not be 100% skewed towards just cutting your spending or cost saving. The emphasis also should be towards improving or growing your income. So the question is, if you're able to cut your expenses by 50% or cut it by 20%, you should also be able to do things that should, at the minimum, be able to grow your income by similar growth rate. If that is not working pari passu, there's every tendency for you to feel like you are trapped, you are in a cycle. And that's why before I started giving investment strategies, I think it was a bit more deliberate. Before I started giving investment strategies where to put your money, I had to first of all bring up the conversation of your income growth strategy. So first off, if your budgeting is right, if you are saving strategically, if you are staying away from, or rather avoiding, investment scams, you need to also be able to upskill and innovate. Because my personal opinion is that for whatever current work you are doing, there's a next level to that work you are doing that can earn you more money. So what you should be doing is to figure out what the next level is. And figuring that out does not necessarily mean you have to be the smartest person in the room. You probably just need to speak to certain people that have been where you were, certain people that have probably gone through what you've been through, maybe read some materials, engage in some communities, have the level of exposure that would open your mindset towards the possibilities of that next level. And honestly, eventually you'd arrive there. But I think your question was a bit more skewed towards the individual attempting to just cut their savings. And there is no, sometimes you see a lot of things that there is no, what's the word again? There is no law that makes it true. So for instance, when you say you must save, your house rent must be three months of your salary. Actually, what if from the example you have given, I don't think the person should even be renting an apartment that is worth 3 months of their salary. I think the person should get a roommate, split the bill, and then maybe reinvest that into doing something else, or perhaps. But my point remains that it needs to go pari passu, your cost saving and then your income growth strategy. If your income is not growing and you think the best way to apportion your income is to be cutting costs, you find yourself in a very uncomfortable cycle. That's the reality of it. So it needs to go edge for edge. It needs to go pari passu. So as you're cutting your spending as a way to better position yourself, you should also be looking at the ways to also increase and improve your income. Was I able to answer your question?
Yes, please, Mr. Felix, you were able to answer my question. And what I also got from your response is that ideally cutting costs does not save it, but upskilling or maximizing one's income saves it all. So that is what I got. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Felix. Thank you for everybody who came around. So I'm feeling some people are already interested in learning more about the money market mutual funds, and maybe how to maybe start investing in mutual funds and the money market. And if you are interested in such a class and you feel like you would want Mr. Felix to come back and teach us about the money markets, practically how we can start maybe investing in the money market from whatever level we are, or investing in mutual funds, let me see your comments. Let me see you say something in the comment section that you are interested. So if you are interested, Mr. Felix is here, he's reading the comments, and he could come back to now show us how we can start investing in mutual funds and the money markets from maybe next month or next year, whatever. So I need to see the comments, and we need to be sure so that he's sure of what he's coming to do. And I'm only seeing one comment so far. Okay, 2 comments, only 2 people are interested. If we don't have a good interest, we might not be able to pull him out because he's quite busy too, though. So only 2 people are interested in learning about the money market and mutual funds. Okay, I think we don't have enough interest for that. So thank you so much, everybody, once again, for making our time. Like I said, this is Fast Hire Services, and thank you so much. Please do keep in touch with our brand online, on social media. Connect with us so that you would also be able to see some of our relevant and interesting events or trainings and our services. Please don't forget to recommend us. When you see our posts, please do well to interact with us. Can somebody drop our social handles? Is somebody there? Deborah or somebody, please drop our social handles so that people who are not connected with us can connect with us. Please support us when you see our post online. Even if you don't need it, just like, leave a comment, somebody, or share with some, whether it's our events. Is somebody sharing the link? Who is sharing the link? So that's another way you can support us. Who is sharing the link? And then I think I have four people who said they are interested in the class. Well, I'll speak with Mr. Felix. I think the interest was not strong enough, but I'll still speak with him and see. Please, who is dropping the link to the pages? Deborah, who is dropping the link? So whatever is Fast Hire Services on any of the platforms you find us, please do well to connect with us. Mr. Felix, you can flash your contact details. I think I saw it in one of your slides, so that anybody who also wants to connect with you. So he's on LinkedIn. Also, you can connect with him on LinkedIn. I think it's Felix Progress on LinkedIn. So please do well to connect with him. On IG, you can find us Fast Hire NG. Mr. Felix, are you there? Flash that or you don't want to share it?
I'll do just that.
Okay. So like I said, he's also on LinkedIn, but he's quite busy. So some of these things he shared now, you might not necessarily see him sharing it on LinkedIn. You get, but of course, it's good you got this value. We would also try to make the replay available for the attendees of this class so that you get to some time to look through what was said and learn further. So thank you so much, everybody, and do have a lovely evening. Please, let's say a big thank you to Mr. Felix in the comment section, and maybe just leave a clap. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Good night, everybody.